Hello and welcome to Joline Knits A Lot. My name is Joline and this is my show about mostly knitting. How have you been? How are things in your neck of the woods? It is getting towards the end of June here. I guess it's getting towards the end of June everywhere. My kids are officially done classes and they're writing final exams in junior high. We're spending lots of time outside with our puppy, Blue, who is full of energy and gets lots of compliments from walkers and neighbors, so that's nice. And yeah, we're just generally enjoying the good weather. How are things where you are? I hope that you're not scorching in a heat wave. And I hope that you're able to get out and do some things outside and also enjoy your crafting time. Here in Canada, as I spoke about last time, we continue to, I guess, come to terms with the brutality of residential schools that happened in Canada and continue to happen until more recently than a lot of us would like to admit. And I spoke about my thoughts on residential schools last time. But I guess I'd like to just share something that I heard recently, and that was that a lot of people, or some people, may say, it's not my fault. I wasn't around when these awful things happened. I wasn't involved. I didn't take part. It wasn't me. It was my ancestors. You can't blame me for that. And that may be true. But you do have agency over yourself and your actions now. So if you aren't doing something to stop the injustices and the discrimination and the racism that happens in your community, whoever, against whatever group or whatever culture, then you are complicit. And so if I don't do something, then that is on me. And so I have been taking time to do a lot of reading, to learn about the Indigenous peoples in my area. I've also had some really meaningful conversations with my daughters about racism, about Indigenous peoples, about our thoughts on what it means to be the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of immigrants to this country, and what that means in terms of our relationship with Indigenous peoples. So I'm doing small things, I think, to try to come to terms myself in my understanding about the community and the area where I live, but also to impart a greater sense of understanding with my children, which I think is maybe a greater impact than the small things that I do myself. But that's what's been happening here. That's what's been on my mind and in my heart lately. I would like to share with you a finished object. I'm wearing it. This is my Cozy Classic White, and I'm going to insert some pictures here. This is a pattern, I think, that I showed you before. It is by Jessie Made Designs. I knit it in Sheepies Skies, which is a fingering weight, naturally dyed cotton yarn. And I have thoughts about this yarn. Now that it's all knit up, I'm quite happy with the feel and the drape of the fabric. It's cotton, so I find that laying it out to dry doesn't do it any justice. So I've put this shirt, first I gave it a good soak in some water and some vinegar because I wanted to try and fix as much of the dye as I could. And that worked to some extent, but I sort of came to the conclusion that this shirt is going to be like an old pair of jeans because it's cotton, it's dyed with indigo, and I think it's going to wear somewhat in the same way that the color in denim can fade over time. And you know what, I'm fine with that. It's a t-shirt. that I knit up, and it's cute and I like it, and I think that it'll add some character to it as it washes and fades. So I did soak it several times. A lot of the blue dye was coming out, and in the end I just threw it in my washer with an old towel or two. It was okay if the dye came out on the towel, and it didn't. It washed up nicely. Then I threw them in the dryer, and this is the result. The shirt that I made is, I wouldn't call it necessarily cropped, but it's not long either. It's just sort of a maybe waist length, upper hip length t-shirt. I like the fit. I think it's great with a pair of denim shorts or a skirt or whatever, and I'm quite happy with the end result. So the Cozy Classic Light by Jessie Made Designs, and I knit it in Sheepy's Skies in the Cumulus colorway. Just a warning, if you're thinking about using this yarn, the dye did come off a lot on my hands while I was knitting. So be prepared for that. It only came off on my hands and not on the project bag that I used. It didn't come off on my clothes or anything as I was handling the project, just my hands. And it washed off easily, which it's not ideal. Like it's not what I would, it's not a quality I would want in my ideal yarn. But for this project, I was fine. I dealt with it and it was fine. And I'm quite happy with the end result. The dye is not coming off at all now. And I have this cute little t-shirt. The other Stash Dash. This is how many meters it took me to complete this project. I do have some left over. I probably have about maybe a little less than a ball left. So I'm thinking about making a little just a little knitted drawstring bag that I can use either as a project bag, or maybe I can use it for packing, or maybe I use it as a gift bag. I don't know, but you know what, I have this yarn, so I may just make a little drawstring gift bag out of it. And there is a Pearl Soho pattern that came out recently that is free, and then I will insert right here. I can't remember exactly the name of it, but it's perfect. It's just a knit drawstring bag, which you could also make into a little backpack, but I think I'll just make a drawstring bag, and that will be that. The other thing that I have finished since I spoke to you last was a pair of socks. These socks were tubes that I cranked on my 3D printed circular sock machine, which I guess still needs a name. I'd been in some chat rooms and somebody suggested Black Beauty because it's black, which is not a bad idea. So maybe I'll start calling my 3D sock machine Black Beauty, or BB. Perfect. So on my circular sock machine, I cranked these tubes. These are tubes of yarn by Mustache Yarns. This is a sorting hat colorway. I have been slowly working my way through all of my stashed Harry Potter themed yarns that I purchased a number of years ago, before it came to light that the author of those books has some very troubling thoughts on transgender women in particular, that I find disturbing, obviously, and I don't want to support her in any way. So I'm just working through the yarn that I have because I don't want it to go to waste, and I supported the yarn dyer by purchasing those yarns, but I won't be seeking out any Harry Potter themed yarns in the future. Anyway, these are this is the Sorting Hats colorway. I used some Knit Pick Stroll, something different, in the Jackrabbit colorway in the heels, cuffs, and toes. And these socks will probably just go into my gift box for maybe Christmas this year, some birthdays coming up. So yeah, it's just another pair of socks for my gift box, and I use this many yarns. I use this many yarns. I use this many meters, and I'll be adding that to my total for Stash Dash. And that is all the finished objects I have to share with you this week. I have been working on a couple of things though, of course. There's always something on my needles. So I'll show you the first thing that I cast on. I have it right here, handily enough. This is the Pavement Pullover. It's a pattern by Vera Valimaki, and I have knit this in the past, and I loved it. I loved the way it fit. I loved the length of it. It's a slightly longer shirt. I wouldn't quite call it a tunic, like it's not so long that I'd call it a tunic, but it is a really nice length. And the original version of this sweater that I knit with a single ply yarn with that had some cashmere in it, so it was quite soft and it's pilling, and it's actually becoming, I think, quite threadbare. So that one may have to go, but I am replacing it with another one. So this is the sweater I have so far. Ta-da! Now the way that the Pavement is knit, you don't do a lot in terms of the yoke. Like, you don't knit down whatever it is, 8-9 inches from the top of your collar to your underarm, and then put the sleeve stitches on hold and do the body. You actually put the sleeve stitches on hold quite early on. So I've done that, and I have, so as you can see, I've put that on hold, and then I've started knitting the body. I'm using helical knitting to alternate 2 balls of yarn in the body section. This is very awkward for me to show you. And it's coming along. I worked on it great blazes. I worked on it a bunch for a few days, and then I got distracted by something else that I'm going to show you. But now that I'm seeing it, I'm really liking the color. Like, I like this sort of peachy blush color. It's a very neutral color with like flecks of sort of a mahogany brown almost, or burgundy. Really pretty. This is yarn that I picked up at the last Knit City in Vancouver that I went to, which was probably 2019. I think that's the last one they had. The yarn is by, can we see that? Cedar House Yarns. This is a dyer in Bellingham, Washington. So it's actually not far from Vancouver at all. And the colorway is Quail's Egg. This is it's called their sapling sock. And I think it's working up very nicely for this project. So right now I'm at the point where I did the interesting bits, and now I just need to knit like 16 inches or something in stockinette helical knitting. So I think probably that's why it got put on the back burner, but I would like to pick it up soon. I have soccer games coming up. My daughters have started up again playing outdoor soccer now that things are opening up here in Alberta. My older daughter, I think, has a exhibition game on Saturday, and so I think I will be taking some knitting, some just plain stockinette stitch sweater, while I cheer for her team. I have a problem when I cheer for my children. Particularly in competitive sports. It doesn't really apply so much in dancing because it's just sort of a different venue. But when my kids play soccer, I am quite a vocal mom. I yell a lot. Usually I try to be very positive, but I think it gets on my kids' nerves sometimes. So if I'm knitting, and actually if I have something distracting to knit on, I tend to yell less. Do you have that problem? I only do that for my kids. I wouldn't do it for other people's kids. Well, I do it for other people's kids on my kids' team, like their teammates, but I wouldn't do it for like your kids if I didn't know them, unless you wanted me to. And then I could, because I'm that kind of friend. I would do that for you. Let me know. So, as I was saying, I got a little distracted from my pavement sweater, and that was because I had finished all my other knitting. I only had my pavement sweater on the needles, and then I needed something else. And of course, I stopped mid-row, so I'm just going to get to the end of this row while I discuss what it is that I started. So I have had wouldn't say a passion. I've had a crush, sure, a crush on spin cycle yarns for a while now. And I mean, they are a costly yarn, a beautiful yarn, but costly. And so I have used their yarns in different projects. And often I find that I have part balls left over, especially if I'm doing like a yoke, for example, on a sweater. You don't really need that much to do a contrast color on a yoke of a colorwork sweater. And so I often have bits of balls left over. Bits of balls, maybe that will be the title of this episode. So I have bits of balls left over, and so I have kept them because this yarn is too precious and too lovely, really, to get rid of. And so I have been collecting odds and ends of spin cycle yarns for quite some time. I also had the opportunity to purchase some of their mill ends, which are small amounts of different colors, not enough to make a full skein, but bits and bobs, and you can purchase them occasionally. They have sales throughout the year. So I purchased a package of, I think, maybe 5 or 6 different assorted balls. They were small, but I have been collecting them, and I put them all together. Maybe I'll put a picture right here of my little collection, and it's, I mean, you can't see them all, but I've just kept them, all of the part balls that I have, to be used one day to make a Nightshift shawl. And so I decided that this now was the time. So I grabbed some balls. Because this is a triangular shawl that starts at a narrow point of the triangle and grows, I started with my smaller balls so that I could use them up. And now I'm just sort of transitioning colors as and when I sort of see fit. I'm trying to get them to blend a little bit, as you can see. I'm just using up what I have. The part that I've gotten to right now has very little contrast. As you can see, they're quite samey. And there are sort of areas that are like that, and then areas with more contrast. But what I'm really liking right now is the way that I have some like cooler areas and then some more warmy jewel tone sort of sections. And that is sort of the feeling I'm going for. It's like, I don't know. Anyway, I don't really know how to describe the look that I'm going for. I'm just quite happy with how things are turning out. And right now I'm using these 2 balls. And the great thing about spin cycle is the way that the colors melt into each other. So this is my background colors. You can see it's sort of a, I don't know, a greeny gray beige, grayish. But if you look, there are like hints of pinks coming. So I'm going to keep using this as my background for a little while longer to get to those pinks. This is the contrast color I'm using at the moment, which is sort of deep and moody right now. But when I'm done this section, I'm going to swap this out. And then my plan is to move into some more sort of pinky tones. So I have this one that I'd like to move towards, and these 2 together maybe. And I'll probably use these ones coming up. I sense a strong blue section coming up in the near future. I also have this really nice sort of warm toned, this warm toned one that has like, oh, I don't know, almost peaches and neutrals, and I'm trying to figure out what to blend that with. It could be this one maybe, with the golds that are sort of moving towards blues. So that's the fun of spin cycle, is trying to melt your colors together so that you get a project that you really like. I'm really happy with this section here, like with these aqua tones and the browns. I really like this whole section here with the warm sort of golds and pinks and purples. Yeah, there's like some hits of some bright blue right there, which are kind of fun. So, the thing with this project, I think, is that I'm trying not to get too caught up with my color choices, because especially when I had only done like this much of it, you know, when you're only looking at this, it's like, oh, that's a lot of yellow. But in the grand scheme of the whole shawl, it really, like, it evens itself out. And I think that if I can continue to sort of mix and match the colors and to try and incorporate a lot of the colors that I really like and that I wear often, then that will make this shawl a lot more wearable. And I'm trying to save the colors that I really love, like my favorite colors, closer to the end, because those, as the triangle grows, those are the sections that are just bigger, so you see them more. And that is all I have on my needles right now. I'm kind of at the point where I don't really know what I'm going to be knitting next. Sometimes I have my knitting planned out for the next 4 or 5 projects. And sometimes I'm just winging it. And I feel like right now I'm just winging it. I cast on that Pavement because I knew it would be good stockinette stitch, and I knew that I would like a Pavement to be able to wear in the fall. I cast on the Nightshift because it's been sort of an idea at the back of my head for quite some time, and now just seemed like a really good time. But I don't really have any big plans for the future. Let me know what you're thinking about knitting. There is an Andrea Mowry knit along that is just starting, possibly today, very, very soon. And it's just to knit accessories, hats, cowls, smaller accessories, not shawls, but hats, cowls, mittens, socks, that sort of thing. So I may knit a thing or two just to be a part of that knit along. I have it in my head I'd like to crank some more sock tubes. And after that, I don't really know. I'm feeling kind of wishy-washy in my knitting right now. Not that I'm not enjoying knitting, but I just don't have like great knitting plans for the future. I do have another sweater I would like to knit for the fall, and that's the Stripes sweater by Andrea Mowry again. And I have yarn for it. It's just sitting waiting to be wound up. We're waiting for the right time to knit it, and maybe that will be soon, and maybe not. Maybe something else will catch my eye. What are you knitting on right now? What is catching your eye? What are you really interested in right now? Summer can be a funny time for knitters. Do you find that? Unless there's something that you're really wanting to knit for the fall, I find summer kind of a time of like, oh, well, I just knit little things, or I kind of go with the flow. So we'll see. I'm still really enjoying knitting. I'm really enjoying knitting on my night shawl or my Nightshift, because as you keep knitting, the colors shift and change, and so it's really interesting. But as the rows get longer, I have a feeling that will fade a little bit. That feeling will fade a little bit, but we'll see. Thank you. Thanks for joining me today. Thanks for being here to listen to me natter on about my summertime knitting. I'm looking forward to my daughters being done school and done with the stress of exams. I'm looking forward to them being able to but to take charge of Blue a little bit more. He's a lot of work, and so having them off for the summer, I'm hoping will be helpful in keeping him busy and helping getting him trained a little bit better, and just keeping him happy and keeping the rest of us happy too. So thank you. Thanks for joining me. And I hope that in the next couple of weeks, you will find time to do something that you really love to do, whatever that is. Maybe it's gardening, maybe it's being outside, maybe it's going for walks, maybe it's reading a book. I hope that you find time to fill your cup. I know that I plan on knitting a lot. Thank you. Bye.